We're going to just refer to have yourself a point. Could you move just a little bit? That's how it's like. Put yourself on the table. Because people who hold strong like that and lean back in the chairs after a while they go to sleep. So we're going to learn something in general about the whole concept of the Mishkan, and then we're going to pay attention to a certain detail in the building of the Mishkan and how Rashi deals with that and how that connects up with what we're going to say now. So we see that the beginning of the parsha, the Eibishter commands that Moshe Rabbeinu that he should take from all the Yidden Truma, which Truma means basically the end of donation and taking part financially and also in the actual materials and necessities for the Mishkan. And he reckons out 12 or 13 different inyanim, things that have to be given. Some people hold it's only 12, some people hold it's 13. But we're not going into that right now. And then after having reckoned all of those inyanim out, in Pasuk Ches, chapter 25, Pasuk Ches, he says, "Vasuli Megiddosh." You must make for me a sanctuary, literally, like a holy place. V'shochanti b'seichon, and I will dwell amongst them. So, dwell amongst them apparently implies to dwell amongst the Yidden. It can't be referring to the Mikdash itself, because it should have been written Vasuli Mikdash v'shochanti b'seichoi, as the well-known, the famous Dio Bezer. And it's well known that this is considered by the Rambam in his famous work, the Mishnah Torah in the Hilchos Beis HaBechira. So the Rambam learns that that pasuk is a mitzvah saseh, a positive commandment for all the generations to come, that you must make the Beis HaBechira, you must build the Beis HaMikdash. Even though it would seem that the verse is only referring to making what we're dealing with right now, and we're in the Midbar right now. And so right now we're building the Mishkan. And later on, in all the Pesukim, it's called the Mishkan, which means the dwelling place, the dwelling place of Hashem. And here it's called, all of a sudden, the word Mikdash. And Mikdash is the name for what was later the permanent dwelling place of Hashem in Yerushalayim. And that was called the Beis HaMikdash, or Mikdash Stam. Or as the Rambam calls it, based on certain Maimarei Chazal, the Beis HaBechira, the place that the Eibishter chose. So it's of some interest that we call it here the Mishkan, which is the sanctuary made here in the desert while they were traveling around, which is not a permanent building. It's built only for the necessities of where they are at that particular moment, and then they move all around the place with the actual Mishkan, as well known, the whole Seder, how it's put up, and then the Leviim used to come and take it down, and it was carried by the Leviim. Different groups of the Leviim carried different parts of it. It was a movable, and it did move, and it was they call it an ever-moving sanctuary. So therefore, the fact that it's called here Mikdash That's of interest. And the Rambam learns that word mikdash is like a closed word. They call it a general term referring to all buildings of this nature, what they will be the central point where Hashem will dwell, b'seichom, amongst them, amongst the Jewish people. In other words, that the whole function and whole purpose of the Mishkan and later the Mikdash is to cause a dwelling, as it were, a presence of divinity in an open and revealed way amongst the Jewish people. In other words, that not the Mikdash is just a place where Hashem will dwell, but the Ikar purpose is that it should, through his appearing in the Mikdash, which later we may mention what sort of appearance was there of Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, through that he should dwell and become part of the life of all Yidden in a very revealed and a very special way. And through that, it should affect the whole world. And it should bring a revelation of God's divinity into the whole world. As is well known that Klali, that the Beis HaMikdash stood, as long as it was standing, not only Yidden benefited from the Beis HaMikdash, but also the Goyim benefited tremendously. The hashpah, how do you call it, the influence of the Beis HaMikdash was far beyond the boundaries of Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael. No, it went throughout the whole world. Therefore, it's brought down in the Medrash that when the Romans destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash, it's brought down that the Medrash says that if they would have known how much the Beis HaMikdash was really giving them, Dahainu, a few of the Romans, how much the Beis HaMikdash was actually affecting their country and their lives, then they wouldn't have destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, nor all these legions that they brought into the country. They would have used them to surround the Beis HaMikdash to prevent anybody, chas v'sholem, getting close or doing any damage to the Beis HaMikdash. Those same people that destroyed the Beis HaMikdash would have been the most, energetic guardians of the Beis HaMikdash, that nobody should touch it. In other words, that the Beis HaMikdash implied a great elevation in the whole world. And the whole world benefited, and all the individual nations, each one in his own inyan, benefited through the unbelievable divine hashpah that there was in the Beis HaMikdash. And therefore, it's brought down in Sforim that the Churban, the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, caused a Yerida not only by Yidden. It didn't cause just a lack of and a going down from their Madrega and the type of their life that they led while the Beis HaMikdash was standing, and also beneged to, like we said before, Gilui Elokus, in the lives of Yidden and in Yerushalayim and Klali, in Eretz HaKodesh v'chulu. The whole world went down onto a much lower Madrega, and the Goyim and all those who were enemies of Yidden v'chulu, they had also a tremendous Yerida through the destruction of the Mikdash. So therefore, when Hashem says here, V'asuli migdosh v'shulchanti b'seichom, Rashi says, Asuli migdosh v'asuli shmi beis kedusha. You must do to my name, you must make in my name, and therefore that's the lashon li. Li means lishmi. Asuli lishmi, for my name, a beis kedusha, how do you call it, a holy house, a house where I'll be able to dwell, a place of dwellingness of my holiness. So therefore we could suggest, and I later saw this in the name of the Shachal HaTorah, and I mentioned him in the last class, the Shachal HaTorah was a Talmud of the Talmudi Arizal, that he lived here in Tzfaz. and he wrote a great work called the Sifsei Kohen, not to be confused with the Sifsei Kohen on Yerodea. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but there's a Shach al Yerodea, and then there's a Shach al Atur. They're two different people. They're not the same authors. And he says that the pasuk V'yasuli Migdosh refers to Be'ikah, to the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. But it also hints, since it uses the word for Shochanti, well, that's also Mishkan, but that hints at the Mishkan, and also the fact that the first word of the pasuk, it says V'yasuli, with a vav. Well, we didn't really grammatically have to have that vav. That vav is including all the different stages of the Mishkan, which were at the beginning in the desert, and then when I went into Eretz Yisrael for about almost close to 400 years, there was a Mishkan. That Mishkan that they had in the desert was put up in a city called Shiur, and it was there for a long, long time. And they added to it somewhat. They built certain stone walls and certain parts of the Mishkan in Shiur. They built it a little bit like later they were commanded to build Jerusalem HaMelech, the Beis HaMikdash, which was the permanent dwelling place of Hashem in Yerushalayim. So this pasuk, Asuli Mikdash, is very rightfully learned by the Rambam as being a mitzvah, as I said, to build the Beis HaBechira. And according to the Shachar, maybe according to the Rambam also, the main and Ikar mitzvah, which is hidden in this pasuk, make me a holy place, and I will dwell b'tzeichom, I'll dwell amongst the Yidden. The Ikar, it's referring to the Beis HaMikdash. Ultimately, that's the Ikar, because that's the permanent dwelling place of Hashem. It also includes within itself also the building of the Mishkan in the desert, and later in Shiur, and then it moved from Shiur to Noiv, and then later to Givon. It moved several times, the Mishkan, until eventually it was destroyed or lost. It's not the place to go into here exactly what happened, but ultimately there was no longer the Mishkan, Begodoi, and then they, David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, they built the permanent Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. So I asked myself the question, I just want to make a quick introductory flow to this whole inyan at a Beis HaMikdash. You know, what was the inyan behind the fact that Hashem had to have a Mishkan in the desert, and that traveled around with them wherever they went. And just by the way, the Alter Rebbe, they say that wherever a really great tzaddik, for example, wherever he goes, wherever he comes, then he affects all the spiva around him. You know, they call it the whole area around him is affected, and people get aroused, and the whole country changes. As the well-known, when the Friedrich Rebbe reached America, he said that we have to thaw out America. You know that America was described by him as being frozen, because it was going to get to all matters of Yiddishkeit. It was like a big block of ice. And he said, now that if I've arrived, he said, we're going to have to make sure to melt the ice of America. You guys have heard about it maybe. And then about 5 years later, in a Fabringen in Simchas Torah, he said, well, the Baruch Hashem, the ice has started to melt. It's you know, it's melting multiplicitly. It's happening. It's really beginning. So in the same way, the Mishkan, the Alter Rebbe writes in Likutei Torah and Pasha Nosai, that wherever the Yidden went with the Mishkan, after the Mishkan was built, wherever they went, the Mishkan, he called, knocked off all the clippers and all the sitracha. Because the desert is a place of the clippers. It says, Pikabola. That why is it such a deserted place and such an unpleasant place? Because it's a place where all the clippers have a lot of hold. And one of the reasons why they moved the Mishkan around was to take the Mishkan into all the different places where the clippers are very strong, knock them, and to beat them. And by bringing the Mishkan in each different part of the Midbar, they were mevatel another. And a Rabbi, a Emes Tzaddik, he's like a living Mishkan. He's like a living. He's a Mishkan on 2 feet. You know, wherever he goes, there's also the same effect. So one of the reasons I'm so bad living for the moment, but one of the reasons there was always a big, there was always a tremendous shaila that people had. Why didn't the Rebbe come and visit Eretz Yisrael? Why didn't he come to Eretz Yisrael? Why didn't he come and settle in Eretz Yisrael even more? And he insisted on staying over there in Brooklyn, and he was very, very careful never to come anywhere near anywhere near, so he didn't come to Eretz Yisrael. So once there was one of the big members here of the Knesset, I'm not sure exactly which one it was, if it was a really leading or just one of the members of the Knesset. It doesn't matter really who it was. So he said to the Rebbe that everybody in Eretz Yisrael is expecting and looking and yearning for the fact that the Rebbe should make a visit and maybe should come and settle in Eretz Yisrael. And particularly that now that Eretz Yisrael has been set up, that it's like the main center of all the struggle against Yidden and the preservation of Yidden against the struggle of the Goyim and all the things that are happening in the world. You can see that they're somehow or another involving Eretz Yisrael. They're affected or they're stirred up by the fact that Eretz Yisrael is what it is. So as it were, the main struggle of Yidden and humanity out of them is in and around the base of, in and around the Inif and Eretz Yisrael. So the Rebbe being the general and the leader of the army of the whole Eretz Yisrael, his place is at the head of the army, at the head of the fight, and the head of the struggle, so therefore he should come to Eretz Yisrael. So what did the Rebbe answer? Do you know? You know the Rebbe's answer. The Rebbe said he has another marshal based on the same marshal. And the Rebbe said that the captain of a ship is also like a general. He's the leader of the ship. However, there's a general rule that when the ship is sinking, then who leaves the ship last? According to international nautical law, who's supposed to lead? The captain.
The captain is last to lead.
Huh?
Captain is last to lead. No?
The captain and his head?
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't hear well here.
No, the captain is last to leave.
Yeah, yes, I'm saying. The last one to leave is the captain. So the Rebbe said that America is like as far as Yidden are concerned, it's like a ship that's sinking. And so if he's the captain, then he can't leave the ship, he has to leave the ship last. He can only leave the ship last. And he said, of a colloid that he's here, then the sinking is much more gradual. But if he were to leave in the middle, then the whole thing went. So we see, that's what the Rebbe said, yeah. So from that we see that a tzaddik, an Emes Rebbe, it has an effect on the whole. Yeah, wherever he is, he holds everything together. If he were to move, everything would finally sink and collapse. That's the concept of the Beis Hamikdash. The koloi that the Beis Hamikdash was there, the whole world was great. And it was good for the Goyim as well. Everything was great. After the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore the Rambam learns that this whole Indian, what Rashi states in those brief words, Asuli Beis Kedusha, make for my name, a Beis Kedusha, well that's a mitzvah which involves all the generations from that moment on, and it includes Be'ika, we could suggest, the Beis HaMikdash, and that's why he calls it Mikdash. And the other Inyonim are hinted at in the Pasuk, the Hainu, the Mishkan, and then the Mishkan later in Shiloi and in other places. They're like hinted at and drawn in the Pasuk as well, and they are like lead-ups, or they're like forerunners of the ultimate Gilui Elokus through the whole world, through Yidden into the whole world. So why would the Eibishter, I just want to suggest to you something before we move on to what I want to deal with in particular. Why would the Eibishter want a mikdash? What's it is? Why would he make a positive commandment that involves all the generations and involves everybody in all the generations to come? Why would he want a mikdash? What's it is? So what do you guys think is the purpose of the creation? I'm asking you a bit of a pompous sort of a question, it's a general question.
Pleasure.
What do you think is the purpose of the creation?
The purpose of creation?
Yeah, wake up a little bit.
A little bit.
Huh?
Make a deer of the tachtona.
What do you have to say?
Well, it says, I think Rashi said, or Rambam said, Rashi or Rambam said that the Beit HaMikdash only, or the whole idea of the Beit HaMikdash only came because of the golden calf, because we made the golden calf and there's that attraction.
Forget about the golden calf.
Well, because we made that in the tragic incident, it was to
it's like a
that
kapara for the golden. It's like a kapara. But that's not what I'm aiming at. I'm asking a more general question. Why did Hashem, so what did he have in creating the world? In creating the world.
I don't understand the question.
He's a bit confused. The question's too massive.
No, for man to work with Hashem. For man to work with Hashem.
For man's work to Hashem.
Work with.
The man should work with Hashem?
Man's work with Hashem.
Man should work with Hashem.
Yeah.
That's very nice. He says that the Eibishter wanted that man should work with him. That's pretty good. That's getting... In other words, what I'm going to suggest to you is that the Eibishter Kaviocho couldn't be alone. The Eibishter didn't want to be alone. He wanted to have another creature apart from him in a world no lower than, it couldn't get any lower than that world, and that man should meet up with him in that lowest of all worlds and make it a dwelling place for both of them together, including Hashem. Hashem should be able to dwell there with his full essence of his atzma, his full being, in this lowest of all worlds, together with, like, what's your name?
Eliezer.
Eliezer? That's a nice name, Eliezer. Yeah. Eliezer said that means that the Eibishter wanted to work together with man. Now, that's very good, because the Gemara says that if you really get into Avodas Hashem, then you become like a shooter, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'maaseh bereishit. If you really do things the right way, it's written in reference to different matters, both in the Gemara and in the Midrashim, that you become like a shutaf. Now, what is a shutaf?
Partner.
I used to know what a shutaf is. A shutaf is somebody that also puts into the business. There can be such a thing as a sleeping partner. I don't know if you ever heard of that in business. A sleeping partner means somebody who just takes profit, but he doesn't put anything in. But a normal partner is somebody who puts in, He puts into the business, and therefore he takes half or whatever part of the profit he takes, because he put money in. So the same way, you become like as if you're putting money, you're putting into the creation, and you and Hashem are benefiting from the prophets. No, not prophets, Nevi'im, but prophets, the prophet. In order to do that, Hashem created Adam Rishon in Gan Eden. Hashem created Adam Rishon in Gan Eden. Now, who was Adam HaRishon? He was pretty hot stuff. Adam HaRishon was perfect man. Everlasting. Just like Hashem. Hashem originally wanted that everything, we're all together. Hashem and His created being are all together. Therefore, His created being is going to live like He did. Everlastingly. And the world was an amazing and perfect world. And Hashem put Adam into Gan Eden, li'ovdo u'l'shomro. Look in the pasuk at the beginning. V'anichehu b'Gan Eden. He put him into Gan Eden, li'ovdo u'l'shomro, to work it and to guard it. And so, what was there to guard? That's an interesting question. And I can't deal with all the questions in one shiur. Like, we could deal with that, but we're not going to today. To work it and to look after it, let's put it that way. Preserve it. And it's brought down that Adam HaRishon offered up a korban to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know what he offered up, Mendel? You know what he offered? What was the korban? Jan, do you know? Wake up a bit. You ask you a question, wake you up a bit.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's written in the Gemara Masechta Chulin that he offered up a unicorn. Have you ever heard of a unicorn? I must admit I haven't either, but I worked it out. What is a unicorn? A unicorn means a very special type of cow or bull that's only got one horn in the middle. It's a very special and unusual and beautiful species. It's called a unicorn. And by, in certain symbolism, it has very meaningful inyonim about it. Adam HaRishon took this unicorn and he offered it up as a korban. So what did he do, Adam HaRishon? He just checked it or bashed it over the head or something and then offered it up. Chas v'cholila, chas v'shalom. We have to say that Adam HaRishon shachat, how do you call it? He shechted the unicorn, and where did he offer it up? We have to say he had a mizbeah. He had some sort of a altar, Adam HaRishon. So what was he doing offering this korban? Adam HaRishon. What was he doing offering this korban? When people later in the Beis HaMikdash and in the Mishkan, when they offered korbanos, what was one of the main features of a korban? A korban was a kapora, what he called an atonement for some sort of a fault, either general faults or personal fault. The general korbanos, like the tmidim, the ongoing, they were like kapora for the general cloud. In other words, when they offered up the tmidim the whole time, people were pure. The whole public was pure. As it's brought down in the Gemara. And the Gemara says in Masechta Zvachim that the Talmud Shel Breaker that they brought early in the morning, that was mechaper and all the averas that people might have done during the night. And the one in the after was mechaper, they called atone, for all the averas that people might have done during the day. All the korbanos have a certain trace that they are an atonement. So Adam HaRishon, that he offered a korban, what was he atoning for? What do you say, boy? What was he atoning?
The tree.
Huh?
The tree. The tree?
The tree.
It's a das.
The Eitz Das.
Oh no, we're talking about before the Eitz Das. Well, the
We're only there for a
Eitz
few minutes.
Das was very bad news, I guess. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about originally when Hashem placed Adam HaRishon in
which is
So it's brought down in Chassidus, and the Rabbi brings it in a Maimah, that Adam HaRishon wanted to get even more tremendous divine light into the creation than there was already. Adam HaRishon was a Chabadnik. And Adam HaRishon said, we're not satisfied. This is what you do, Hashem. You've got a lot more. You could give incomparably greater Oyer Ein Sof into the world.
Sounds like he was a woman.
Had to go to unlimited divine light into the world. So let's have it. So therefore he offered up the Korban as a way of bringing down something greater and higher. And we see sometimes if you give of yourself a bit and you really devote yourself, then you bring down something incomparably higher than what you had before. So in that way, Adam HaRishon wanted to reach a level in divinity which hadn't yet appeared in the creation. And therefore he offered that Korban that he did, as the Gemara tells us, and it's apparent also in the actual Pasuk, that he offered in order to bring down incomparably greater lights. And he said to the creation, don't be satisfied. We want Atzmus now. We want more. Divine Elokus, Akshav.
Was this?
Maybe he had a tank somewhere, Adam HaRishon. Could be had a tank. I mean, a mitzvah tank. And he drove around saying to people, I don't know what people there were at that time, but saying to the creation. Because the animals then were all able to understand, by the way. You happen to know that. Because the fact that the animals don't understand, and they are a bit nasty, some of the animals, that's only because of the Chedei Tzadah. Or before the Chedei Tzadah, they were very different, the animals. So Adam HaRishon, by the way, did gather together all the animals. And he said, he was the first one to introduce into the whole world the Kabbalah Se'el Malchus Hamayim. But I don't want to go into too many things at one go. So anyway, suffice it to say that the world, and Gan Eden especially, had a mizbeach. What did need a mizbeach for? So we have to say that the Gan Eden was the first Beis HaMikdash. Was the first Beis HaMikdash, and all the things that were in Gan Eden were like the things that later appear in the Beis HaMikdash and in the Mishkan. And Adam HaRishon, he and Hashem, like Elazar very capably pointed out, met together in a very, very amazing unity in Gan Eden, and through that they carried out a partnership activity that Hashem said to Adam, listen, I want you to do this and this, and then we're going to have the perfect and eternal unity, you and I together and the world. Which means that the beginning of the world was like a sanctuary, it was like a Beis HaMikdash. And therefore, at the beginning of the Hemshech, Bossi Lagani, from the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe says over there that the word Gani is touched by the Medrash as meaning Genuni. It doesn't just mean a garden, it also means that. But it means like a dwelling place. Genuni is like my dwelling place, and certain Meforshim in the Medrash over there, they say that it means a chuppah. A genun is a chuppah. It's a word in like Aramic or Medrash, Lashon. It's a word meaning a chuppah. So what's a chuppah? Two people meet together and they agree to become united. So why was there a chuppah? Because Hashem and Adam united together. And they became one partnership and one unity in this amazing chuppah. And what was the chuppah? What was the dwelling place? The world. The world was the dwelling place for Hashem. And all the details of the Mikdash were there. And that was the meeting place, and therefore there was a mizbeach. So there was probably also other things. There was probably a menorah and a shul. Maybe in slightly different oifanim, maybe in different manners. But one could suggest that they were there. So what happened was, what Levi mentioned, and that was the Chedei Tzadah. What happened was, what blew everything was the Chedei Tzadah. Because Hashem planted in Adam a most unbelievable gift that doesn't exist. elsewhere. And it doesn't exist by all the Umas Ha'ilam either, according to Chassidus, all the peoples of the world. And that's what we call Bechira. Hashem gave into Adam choice. He could choose. Hashem told him what he wants, but he's got to do it. You know the old saying in the vernacular, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. He's got to drink himself. So Hashem led on him to this whole amazing place, and he said, but I'm giving you the choice. There's always a choice that chas v'sholem, if you eat from the chedei tzara, then things will look different. For who is? Because what is a chet? A chet is where the man says, I'm also a Metzias. Hashem is the main everlasting entity, but I'm also something. And I hold differently than Hashem in this part. Hashem says, no, that's not on. And he says, oh yes, it is by me. Yeah, it is on. So he introduces his will against Hashem's will. But there can't be any greater split between this amazing unity that occurred. There can't be any greater split than that. That's the greatest of all splits. That caused an unbelievable, what they call it, breakage in the whole system. And therefore, as the Rabbi writes over there in the Basi Lagani, the Shekhinah went away, and he got withdrew, went up into higher world. The Ikar Shekhinah b'Tachtoinim Hoiso, that the main Shekhinah was down below. That was at the moment of the actual creation and the actual appearance of Gan Eden, which was like I'm suggesting, that was the Beis Hamikdash. And what happened was that everything parted, and so you were left with a world without Gil Elikut. So what happened to that Beis Hamikdash? What happened to the Beis Hamikdash that was hidden in Gan Eden? It went up into the higher world. It went up to Hashem, and therefore, what is going to happen when Moshiach comes?
Right. It's going to come down.
Huh?
It's going to come down.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing thing. But both Rashi and Tosfos in the Gemara Masechta Rosh Hashanah, both Rashi and Tosfos agree, which is very rare that they should agree, that the Beis Hamikdash is all prepared in heaven, and it's just going to come down after Mashiach arrives. So there's a whole question, how are we going to build the Beis Hamikdash? We've got to do something. We've got to do our part. What part are we going to do if it's all just going to come down from heaven? And that's what you notice over here, in the next pasuk, it's written, Kechil asher ani mareh oischo eis tavnis hamishkon ve'eis tavnis kol kelov ve'chein tasu. He says, according to what I'm going to show you, I'm showing you, Min HaShamayim, I'm showing you the whole shape of the Mishkan and all of its things and all of its vessels and everything. Yeah, I'm showing you on the mountain, you're getting this vision of the Beis Hamikdash. Do what you see. Yeah, v'chein tasu, that's what you do. And by the way, Rashi says, v'chein tasu, Rashi says, l'doiros. But you have to make this for the generations to come. Well, that fits very beautifully with what we just said, that really in this mitzvah is included both the Mishkan, the Beis Hamikdash, all the Mishkanas and all the Bati Mikdash, they're all included in this. And you just got to do it in generations to come, and it's all the same Indian, the same etiquette, the same mitzvah. However, Moshe Rabbeinu, the Hebrew says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm showing you, it's all up here. All you got to do is, as it were, look and see, and it's all there, and then you'll make it. Well, from that it would appear that all of a sudden Hashem's got a Mishkan already waiting upstairs there. So, what's that all about? What's it doing up there with Hashem? Elamai, the whole inner of the world and Adam, they were meant to be a Mikdash right from the beginning. So you might say, listen man, you're dreaming, you've had a couple more than usual or something. I'm not. If you look in the mitzvah Binyan Amidosh, in Derech Mitzvah Sercha, from the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek, when you got that sefer here, I've seen it, so it's here. You can look it up. In the mitzvah Binyan Amidosh, the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek writes that the Beis Amidosh is connected the whole creation. And he said, just like in the whole creation, there are various makifim, which we call them open. So this, how do you call it? Lights which are beyond actual entrance into the pnimius of the world, and then you have what's called pnimi. And that's the difference between the mishkan and the yiriyas, how they call them, the curtains that were at the top, and the kelim, or the hamshoch of pnimi. In the yiriyas, they're what we call makif. So the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek says that the Mishkan includes in itself the whole Bria. And it's built in such a way that it is the Bria in another form. That's what he says. Which means that somehow or another the whole world was meant to be the Beis HaMikdash. Gan Eden, that was the Beis HaMikdash Harishon. I mean, that was the first start. That the whole concept of the Beis HaMikdash. Then we move over, after all the Chatoim and everything, Hashem starts all over again. And he says, we're going to have the Beis HaMikdash, but the Beis HaMikdash, instead of being the whole world, it's going to change the whole world into a Mikdash. Like we said, it really did. It affected the whole world. But it's going to be like a centralized point. And therefore we see that the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma that in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Holy of Holies, there was what's called a Evan HaShasiyah. Have you guys ever heard of it? A big stone that was sort of stuck up, and they used to sit the Oren on that. The Oren sat on the Evan HaShasiyah. So why is that called the Evan HaShasiyah? So the Gemara says in Masechta Yuma, because Mimenu, from that stone, Hushtas Kol Hoilam, the whole world was founded upon and built from that stone. In other words, the Evan HaShasiyah was the first thing the Eibusha created. Yeah, as they state in the Gemara, it's like when you make a circle with a compass. It's like with a circle with a compass. It's worthwhile paying attention. You won't lose that. It's, you put down a point, and then you draw the circle around the whole. So the same thing, the Eibusha put down this Evan HaShasiyah, and he built the whole world around. And most of the great authorities, by the way, I don't know if you're aware of it, that the Rabbi in Yamach Shemon, they've got this thing over there on the Har HaBayis. Have you ever seen a picture in the big stone in there? And they claim that that's the Evan HaShasiyah. That's what they claim. But some great authorities nowadays says it's not right, that the Evan HaShasiyah, Hamiti, is really further over somewhere. Yeah, to the, how would you call it, the north or the southwest, like going over at an angle further. That's where the Evan HaShasiyah. Hashem wouldn't give them, you wouldn't give such terrible creatures that the whole Indian is spilling blood and everything. You wouldn't give them the Evan HaShasiyah. They just think it is. Or the real Evan HaShasiyah, according to certain great authority. In Cain, what did the Eibusha do? He centralized them. It's brought down on the Sefer Chinuch in Mitzvah Tzadik Hey. If you look it up, he brings down the Indian from Mitzvah Livnei's Beis HaMikdash, and you'll see the Hadikolim, the Sefer Chinuch. He says that the whole world is centralized around the Evan HaShasiyah, and it's all centralized around the Mishkan, which means that the Mishkan is like the center of the world, because for reasons for the fact that man had sinned, and there was so much now unworthiness in the world, Hashem centralized the whole thing. He didn't make the whole world a Mikdash, and he meant through the activities of Eden and the products of the Beis HaMikdash that the whole world would become gradually it would return to be Amigdash. And that's what the Rebbe is after. The Rebbe is working at changing the whole world and making everywhere part and worthy part of being like the Beis Hamikdash. And that's why you got Batei Chabad. What about Batei Chabad? They're like, small functioning Batei Mikdash, but they'll gradually cause the whole world to become sanctified again, like a Beis Hamikdash. And therefore the Rabbi said that every private bedroom of children and things like that has to become like a Beis Hamikdash. You have to have a Tanya, and you have to have a Kuvat Stoker. The famous thing that the Rabbi, you have to have a Chumash in every bedroom, because that makes it like into a small Mikdash. And gradually that's expanding the union of the Mikdash in the whole creation. In other words, the Rebbe is working systematically. He's not just and he called it shooting from the holster. The Rebbe is working very systematically to return the whole world to being worthy of the Beis Hamikdash, and then Mashiach will come, and then the whole world will be affected by the Beis Hamikdash, and so showing that everybody, including even the Goyim, will come, and they'll come every Shabbos and every Rosh Chodesh, and they'll come and they'll serve the Eibush in the Beis Hamikdash, because the whole world, to a certain extent, will go back to what it was like at the first moment of creation. Okay, so that's a bit of a picture, and that's why the Rambam and Rashi say that you have to do for all the generations to come what's written here, because it's all in heaven right now, but it's going to come back down as soon as we only listen to the Rebbe. And then it'll come back down, and then we're going to have a massive world called the Beis Hamikdash all over again. So now I want to just pay attention to a certain prat here, which will help us to understand this principle that I just made, and it'll also help us to understand how we got to relate to things, and what have we got to do. So it's written that one of the things you have to prepare for the Beis Hamikdash was Atzei Shittim. Does everybody know what Atzei Shittim are? They don't even know what Atzei Shittim are. Come on. You guys have learned the Bossi Legani, you must know what Atzei Shittim are. Cedar wood. You have to prepare cedar wood. And what do you need cedar wood for?
Crushing.
Very nice, for the krushim. We need cedar wood for the boards or poles or whatever we'll call them, krushim, that they made up the walls of and like part of the front wall where people entered the Mishkan, also there was partly some krushim. So the question is, they're right in the middle of the midbar. Have you guys ever seen the midbar? Midbar is pretty sort of empty and very not attractive sort of a place. So the question is, where did they get Atzei Shittim?
Someone had Ruach Kodesh, Yaakov, Ruach Kodesh?
I know. He's got a very good point. Oh, no, he's got a good point. He happens to be right. The Rashi tells us that Yaakov, brought down specially to Mitzrayim. I guess he bought the seeds. It would be hard to imagine that they actually bought cedar trees with him, because he came down pretty, metzumtzum, only in a few carts and everything. But anyway, let's see what Rashi says. Over here on Pasuk Hey, the things you're supposed to give for the Mikdash, V'oirish eilim miyodomim, V'oirish tchoshim v'yatzei shittim. So on Atzei Shittim, says Rashi, U'me'ayin hoyu lehem b'midbar. Where did they have Atzei Shittim in the midbar? Now there's a pirush on the Chumash called the Dav Sekenim, or the Bali Atois of it. And just like in most places, the Tosfos says things a bit different than what Rashi does. And the Balei HaTezus, they want to suggest that there was every now in this crazy midbar, every now and then you met up with like a small forest of trees. Like in the middle of nowhere, you would meet up with a small forest of trees, and they were, I'd say, shittim. They were like a, now there's about 6 or 7 types of cedar, C-E-D-A-R. There's about 7 or 8 different types of cedar. And there's one of them called shittim. And that's this particular type. It's a very special and very elevated sort of cedar wood, a cedar tree. So Rashi says, where did they have that in the middle of the desert? He doesn't accept the idea that all of a sudden they ran into a forest of cedar trees in the middle of the desert. Rashi said they didn't have it. Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma. He said, Rabbi Tanchuma, he said a pirush. Now, who's Rabbi Tanchuma? Does anybody know? Rabbi Tanchuma was actually an Amoira, by the way. He wasn't a Tana. He belonged to the time of the Amoraim, but he wrote a medrash. He's like the author of a famous medrash called Medrash Tanchuma. You ever heard of the Medrash Tanchuma? It's not the Medrash Rabbi. It was written by this Rabbi Tanchuma. So it's rare for Rashi, if Rashi asks a question, to quote somebody from the Medrash. He sometimes quotes the Medrash, but he doesn't always say who it is, you know. Pirush Rebbe Tanchuma. Occasionally he does Rashi. So the Rebbe teaches that when Rashi does mention who it was that said this, because his name carries some sort of message to the pshat that he's trying to give over. That it's important to know who said this, because if you understand who that was or what was his inyan, then through that you'll understand what Rashi is hinting at in his pshat. So is anybody able to suggest the word Tanchuma, what sort of thing does that represent?
Rest. Like lenachem, to comfort.
Lenachem. Oh, very
Comfort.
nice. What does it mean, lenachem?
To comfort.
Comfort. Oh, very nice. So the Rebbe says that this is a medrash of Rebbe Tanchuma. In other words, that his whole medrash and the whole thing that he was meant to bring into the world is Tanchuma. In other words, he was a Chacham and he was an Amoira. You read all the Perushim, you know, later. The Rebbe Tanchuma means that he is the message of comfort to the world. Pirush Rebbe Tanchuma. All of his Pirushim are connected with bringing comfort. And when do you need to bring comfort? When somebody's uncomfortable. If somebody's not comfortable, you have to give him comfort. So usually when a person's in a tight state, then you comfort him, you know, or if he's, to be really conscientious in the job means that you get him out of the difficult situation. So we can suggest that Rebbe Tanchuma, his message is how to get you out of the whole situation, which is not good. Let's see for a minute. So Pirush Rebbe Tanchuma, the messenger of comfort. How do you call it? Nechoma. It's not just comfort, it's like, I don't know, I forgot the English word. Tanchuma. Yaakov Avinu tzofa beruach hakodesh. Yaakov Avinu looked forward with his holy foreseeing. How do you call it? Ruach hakodesh. His holy like ability to foresee what's going to be. In other words, it was revealed to him. Min hashamayim. Not that he knew it himself. What did he know? Shasidim Yisrael livnois mishkan b'midbar. He knew, didn't he, Levi? Hello. He knew, Yaakov Avinu knew that they were going to be commanded to build a Mishkan in the Midbar. That's pretty hot going. Yaakov Avinu was a long time before they even went down to Mitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu, he'd been around a long time. And he was around a long time before they went to Mitzrayim, and then they were 210 years in Mitzrayim, and they really thought that maybe they were going to be a lot longer in Mitzrayim, but Hashem shortened it, as you know. So Yaakov Avinu, he already knew that it's going to be a Mishkan. So now why would we suggest that Yaakov Avinu, he's a very tuned-in human being, Yaakov Avinu. And on the contrary, the Maharal in Prague has got a pirush on the Chumash. He wrote a famous sefer called the Gur Aryeh. That's his name was, one of his names was Aryeh. And he wrote a sefer on the whole Rashi, on the Chumash called the Gur Aryeh. So he said, why does Yaakov Avinu, why is he involved in this? Because I don't know if you happen to know it, but Yaakov Avinu is what's called the third line. Have you ever heard of that? El Pikavoy. Avraham Avinu is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvura, but Yaakov is the middle line. And he's what we call Rachamim. He's called the Kavem Tzoi. That's very, very high. Very, very high level. And that goes all the way up to Pnimis HaKesed. That goes up into Kesed and into Pnimis HaKesed. So Yaakov Avinu is like the perfection. Therefore the Zohar Kodesh says that Yaakov Avinu is the Shlimuhu Da'avuhon. He's the perfection, or the most perfect of all the forefathers. And we can establish that in different ways, but let's not go into all the details. Yaakov Avinu, being as he is, connected to Pnimius Elokus, because he links together all the opposites, and he brings together all the, he answers all the, like the contradictions. Things that are like opposing one the other. And he doesn't answer them by writing questionnaires, and he doesn't answer them by, giving some sort of computer program where he answers all the questions. No, just being what he is and giving off what he has to give, Yaakov Avinu answers all the questions. If you meet up with Yaakov Avinu, you feel Pnimius, Alakus, and you just see how everything really unites together. That's just something else. And when I saw the river for the first time, I just, I felt I was looking at something, a human being, that he was like the answer. This person that I'm privileged to see right now, he's the answer. To what? Whatever. Whatever you will have a problem, he's the answer. There was just something so assuring and selfless and perfect and humble all together in the river. It was just unbelievable. It's hard to describe it. And Baruch Hashem, I saw him a lot after that. And I met him personally on many occasions in yeshidas and everything. But it's just the first time I saw it. That was my feeling. So Yaakov Avinu, he's got all the answers. And he's just a living entity of the combining of all the things that seem to hit at one another and like contradict. And he's like the perfection that everything is okay. Everything's going to join together and bring to genuine actus and genuine divine revelation. So Yaakov Avinu, he knew that there's a Beis HaMikdash in the heavens. And even better than that, he knew the Beis HaMikdash had already been down here. He knew that Adam HaRishon had the Beis HaMikdash. And he knew that Adam HaRishon blew it in a certain way. And what did he do? He said, I'm going to fix it. And therefore, the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya that Yaakov Avinu was like a tikkun of Adam HaRishon. And therefore the Gemara says an amazing thing. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan had a Talmud called Rabbi Abuhu, a very great person. It's written that his beauty, he was very powerfully beautiful individual. His beauty was like, how do you call it? I've forgotten who it is, one of the very early people like one of the forefathers or something like that. And Yaakov Avinu, his beauty was like Adam Arishon. But Yaakov Avinu, if you looked at Yaakov Avinu, you saw Adam Arishon. Yeah, as they say in the Gemara. Well, somebody should be excited at least. If you looked at him, if you looked at Yaakov Avinu, you saw Adam Arishon. And on Vildi Sofik, I heard from certain people who saw the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe, that they said that once you'd seen the Rebbe Rashab, it was finished. You could never forget it. It was just something that you could not ever get out of your better and much incomparably better soul. You couldn't forget it. And the same when you saw the Frierdiker Rebbe, and those of us who saw the Rebbe, it's the same thing. Once you saw it, finished. That was it. And he could, that was like the day of my life, but it was like the day that signed you off in a way. You know, you could never sort of match that anywhere else. Fabulous, because she's like the living Migdash, how it was with Adam Arishon. So Yaakov Avinu knew that there was a base of Migdash and a Mishkan in the heaven, and he knew that it's all waiting, and it's going to come down. Hashem's going to give it to the Yidden in the Midbar.
Was Adam Arishon's offering, was it before Chava, or was she already there?
Mm-hmm.
Adam Arishon, his offering to Hashem, was it before Chava, or was she already there?
I know that was probably around about the same time that Chava was made. That was all before the Chet.
Okay.
So that was about the same time that he came together with Chava. And that's another Indian. That's a whole big thing. But I can't do everything.
I just was wondering.
But you're right. Yeah, you're right about that. So what happens? Yaakov Avinu, he sees that there's going to be a Mishkan in the Midbar. I've already suggested several times that we should have a big samovar. Nobody seems to take me seriously. We'd be able to keep Levi away, pump him with some hot coffee.
Just kidding. Just
Good
kidding.
for you.
It's not mine.
So, Adam Arishon and Yaakov Avinu are all the same form. So Yaakov Avinu said, so what does Yaakov Avinu say to his sons? He said to his sons, listen, you guys are going down to Mitzrayim, and that's going to be a big golus and everything, but we want Moshiach
Now.
now. We want the base of Mikdash now, and you got to prepare. And what did he tell the sons to do? Yeah, Shasidim Yisrael livna ish mishkan b'midbar vehivi arozim la'Mitzrayim v'natom. Yaakov Avinu bought cedar trees with him. Now, it could be he carried the whole wagon great cedar trees, I don't know. But it means that the pastor that he bought the seeds, you know. He bought the seeds of cedar trees, and he planted them. Yaakov Avinu himself did that. He didn't rely on anybody. He made sure that they were planted, and then he said, "V'tzivu labono," he told his sons, "Litlo mimohem k'sheyetzu miMitzrayim," that when they go out of Mitzrayim, they should take with them. He said, "Be very careful to take with the cedar trees that are grown in the meantime, because you're going to need them, because you're going to be making the kroshim for the Mishkan." Now, so you might say, well, that's a Gevaldik Gezach, what Rashi told us. And he told us in the name of Rabbi Tanchuma, which means that what is the way to emes a comfort? And what is the way to bring the comfort? To work at what is the aim of the comfort. You've got to work at it and live as if you were already in it. And that's what the Rebbe says. You've got to live with the message of the Geula. You've got to be in it. And you've got to do things now as if we're already moving into the Geula. So Yaakov Avinu took with him seeds, and he is reported as having done that by Rabbi Tanchuma. Well, I can't make anybody really get excited, but I'm sure you all are, you know. Tzad Nefashis, you're all excited. But that's not enough. Now we go over to chapter 25, 5, a much later verse. No, chapter 26, I'm sorry. And we come to chapter 26, Pasuk, Tesvot, Pasuk 15. Chapter 26, Pasuk 15. At the beginning of today's Chitah, the first Pasuk in today's Chitah. So what's written? Ve'osisa es hakroshim lamishkon atzei shitim oimdim. You have to make ha-kroshim with a hayidiyah. Ha-kroshim means the kroshim that you already know about. Ha-kroshim. Now in reference to all the Mishkan, all the things and the pieces that you have to use are not written with a idea. That is written, take this and build this, take such and such and do this, take gold and do this and that. It's not written ha-gold or the gold. Over here it's written the kroshim, which means that somehow or another we already know about the kroshim. We already know what they are. Just take them. The well-known kroshim. So how come the kroshim are so well-known? Comes along Rashi and Shalom Aleichem, the whole story all over again, but with differences. He writes a few different things. So Rashi says, Vasisas ha-kroshim. You must make the kroshim. Or you vasisa kroshim. You should have just said, make boards. Yeah, like he said in all the things, make this and make this, but he didn't say, hey, make the one. So he says, Mahu hakroshim, me'oisen ha'imdim u'miyuchodim lekach, from those cedar woods which are standing ready, and they are specially set aside for that. They're standing ready and they're specially set aside. Yaakov Avinu noto arozim b'Mitzrayim. Oh, here we go again. Yaakov Avinu took down with him arozim and he planted them in Mitzrayim. Ukishameis, well, just before his passing, tzivu lebonov lahaloisa mimohem kesheyetu Mitzrayim. He told his sons that they should take those kroshim with them. Yeah, when they went out of Mitzrayim, ve'omar lahem, and he told them, Sha'osid HaKadosh Baruch Hu letzavois ye'oison la'asois mishkan b'midah me'atzei shitim. He told them there's going to be a midbar. Now notice there's a different pratim here that Rashi didn't write before. He's written it a bit more sort of filled out, that they should take with them these kroshim, and they should build the Mishkan from these kroshim. Ru'u, he said to them, Shiur muzumonim biyetchem. You must be careful, they should be ready in your hand when you get into the desert, because you're going to need them. Ru'u shiyosad habavli, this is what the Bavli, now this is Rabbi Shlomo Habavli, that he was, according to certain authorities, he was a great man. He was earlier than Rashi, and he was actually one of Rashi's teachers. He was actually a Rav, one of Rashi's Rabbi Sai of Rashi, and he was a Paiton, how do you call it? He wrote these like religious liturgical poems, you know, like we have all the slichos and all the, you know, the, on Tisha B'Av, what do you call them, all the things you say on Tisha B'Av? They're also like liturgical poems. So he said, yeah, this is what he says, Shlomo Habavli, in his poem. He says, Tas mata muzurozim koirois pateinu arozim. Yeah, he said you have to fly, tas. The word tas in Hebrew means to fly. Yeah, the only guys I should have somebody flying. Somebody should be taking off from the table and flying. Yatas, Masa Muzurozim. It's flying the journey of the very energetic and get-in early guys. And who's these Mizrahim? The sons of Yaakov. They're very energetic and they're getting in early because they're taking with them Krashim. They got them already and they're flying with them. Tas. Yeah, it says, Koiras Bateinu Arazim. And he said, our houses will be built from these cedar trees and they'll be made. Why does he say it, Rabbi? Because the Mishkan had two Mishkan. There was a Mishkan in the Midbar. Then, as I said, there was a Mishkan in Shiur, and there was even in one or two other places. Sheniz Dazu, they were very swift. Liyais Muchonim Biyodam, Yemikoidam Lochain. That they had them all ready, and as soon as they got out of Mitzrayim, they packed all these cedar trees on the donkeys. And every Yid had a donkey packed with all sorts of good Zachen. So one of the good Zachen was that they all, each and every Yid packed a few cedar trees that they should have ready when they get to the desert. And they went very swift and they flew with them, not just them. So we see from that Rashi is telling us that you know very well everything. Everybody knows everything. We all know the truth. We all know that the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built very soon, and we know it's going to come down from heaven, and we know everything. But how do you say, we drink a cup of coffee, or smoke a cigarette, and we get schlafen.
What?
And we go to sleep, and that's it. So listen, I'm not hinting that if you need your sleep at night, you shouldn't get it. I'm not throwing jokes in order for you to lose out. Chas v'shalom. But what I mean is that we're all dormant, you know what I mean? Here we see that these guys they were fighters, Tas. Shlomi Hababli. Now why did Rashi call him Hababli? Because Babel is the Golus. But no, he's Reb Shlomi Hababli. He's not part of the Golus. So he says that these guys were flying, and that's what you're supposed to be.
Flying.
You're supposed to fly with the rosin that you've already planted. Why have you already planted them? Because you're for sure.
Yeah!
You know there's going to be a Beis Hamikdash that's going to come down and be commanded to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's going to be shown. Hashem's going to say, do you see that Beis Hamikdash? That's what you should do. And it's going to need cedar trees. It's going to need arazim. So I said, oh yeah. Wow. They get out of Egypt, and the main thing was they should have the cedar trees with them. And they flew with the cedar trees. As he said, Rashi, B'Shem Reb Shlomi Hababli. He doesn't live in Babel, he's flying out of Babel. So there we see it, we've got to live the Geula, you understand? You've got to live with the Geula, Kira, it's a reality, and you've got it. You've got it in hand. And how Krashim, those Krashim, everybody knows what they are. But who is? Because Chabadnikas are already preparing it. So everybody knows. And so just to finish, and that's the way of bringing the Beis Hamikdash down Min HaShamayim. And I just want to add one thing, and then I'm running late, so I've got to complete the class. But the Friedrich Rebbe in the Bossi Lagani, he brings the whole thing about the Kroshim. There's a whole Maimah. The second Maimah in the Hemshech is all about the Kroshim. And he says just very briefly that there's three ways you can write the word Keresh. You can write it Kuf Reish Shin, what that's Keresh, or you can write it Shin Kof Reish. What is Shin Kof Reish? Yeah, or you can write it Kuf Shin Reish. What is Kuf Shin Reish? Kesher. So the Friedrich Rebbe says over there that the whole inner of the Kroshim, their inner was to change the sheker of the world into kesher. You change the the falsity of this world into connection with the Eibishter, and how does that function? Bapuyo, through keret. Yeah, you build something in the base of Mikdash, and it's got to be standing. That's the shitim omdim. They're standing ready. And comes along the teachers once again, Al Chumash, and he said, "What are they doing? Standing?" He said, "What does it mean they're standing? They're standing forever." B'Shem HaMedrash, they're standing forever. He said, because they've always been and they are going to always be. Umdim, they're always there. And he said, what happened to the whole base of Midas? They were an amazing thing. He said, when they destroyed it, it all got hidden away. It all got, it had to go, went underground. Underneath the floor of the base of Midas is the whole base of Midas. And the Rambam learns that Yoshiyahu HaMelech, 180 years before the destruction, he took the Aron HaKodesh and he hid it way, way down under the Kodesh HaKadoshim, way, way down in the mountain. There's these huge, what he calls Darchei HaKachalosim. They're like, these winding paths all the way down under the Harabait. And he put the Aron HaKodesh down there. But the Rambam learned something very amazing about that, but I can't go into all that now. Just suffice it to say that you have to ask me to pay my debts, and I'll pay Hashem on a future occasion. I'll tell you what that's all about. According to what Tosfos hints at, the base of Mikdash, even when it's destroyed, it's still around. That's what Tosfos said. In other words, it's still there. It's just hidden. It's gone, underground, as it were. It's still there, and it has to be, because it is the essential message and it's the essential aim of the creation. And therefore, it has to be there. And ha-krashim, they're there. They also, and they are standing. And what does standing indicate? That you're ready to move. You stand up when when you can't be bothered sitting anymore. Remember, you want to get moving. Remember, that's the Indian of the Koshim Eindim. They're waiting and they're ready to make the kesher out of sheker into keresh, batenu, arozim.
That also means inside them.
Sorry?
Tocham also means inside them.
Yeah, inside everything. And that's why, to a certain extent, every Jew in his own service is living.
Nice. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, very nice.
Nice.
That's fine.
Just go ahead. Grab it.